66 million years ago, a blinding light split the heavens. For a brief, unbearable moment, the sky itself was on fire. Then came the silence, the kind that follows after the end of the world. An asteroid, 6 miles wide, had struck the Earth with the force of billions of atomic bombs. Oceans rose into the sky. Forests ignited like paper. The great reptiles that had ruled the planet for over 160 million years, the mighty tyrannosaurs, the horned triceratops, the winged pterosaurs all vanished. The age of the dinosaurs was over. What followed was not a day, nor a year, but an age of darkness. Ash and smoke veiled the sun for years. The air grew cold. Plants withered. The world became silent, lifeless, almost empty. But not entirely. Beneath the ground, in tiny burrows, small, shivering creatures waited. They had no claws to fight, no fangs to defend themselves. Only patience. They gnawed roots. They slept. They hid. While titans burned above, they endured below. These were the first mammals, the humble ancestors of all warm-blooded life that would follow. In the swamps, crocodiles lay still, unmoving, conserving energy through the famine. In the mud, turtles and frogs buried themselves, sealed away from the toxic air. In the oceans, sharks and small fish drifted through the murky depths, untouched by the fire above. And in the shadows of the forests, a few delicate birds, the last descendants of dinosaurs, fluttered weakly from branch to branch, carrying within them the memory of an ancient empire. Life, as fragile as it seemed, refused to die. When the skies finally cleared, the earth was changed beyond recognition. The world of giants was gone, and in its place, a new age began, one built not by strength, but by survival. The survivors of that ancient apocalypse would inherit the earth. They would evolve, multiply, and one day give rise to us, the thinking, dreaming creatures that now look back at that distant past and wonder, how did they make it when everything else fell? What secret of survival did they carry through the fire? And what does their story tell us about our own place in the fragile chain of life? Tonight, we return to that forgotten dawn to trace the footsteps of the creatures that lived when all others died, and to uncover how, in the silence after the end, life found a way to begin again. When paleontologists dig into the deep layers of Earth's crust, they are not just searching for bones, they are reading time itself. Each layer of rock, each grain of ash, tells a story written across millions of years. And somewhere, hidden in that line between two worlds, the age before and the age after, lies the scar of the greatest extinction in history, the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary. It is marked by a thin, dark layer of clay found in cliffs and quarries across the planet. Inside it, scientists discovered something strange, a rare metal called iridium, far more abundant in meteorites than in Earth's crust. That discovery changed everything. In 1980, physicist Luis Alvarez and his son, geologist Walter Alvarez, proposed a radical idea. This layer, rich in iridium, was proof of a massive asteroid impact. At first, many scientists dismissed it. The thought that a single space rock could wipe out most life on Earth seemed absurd. But evidence grew. In the Gulf of Mexico, buried beneath layers of sediment, researchers found the colossal crater, Chicxulub, a wound 180 kilometers wide. It was the smoking gun. This was where the end began. When the asteroid hit, it released energy equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. Seismic waves circled the planet. Wildfires consumed entire continents. Then came the impact winter. Dust and aerosols filled the stratosphere, blocking sunlight for years. Photosynthesis halted. Temperatures plunged. The world entered a long, suffocating night. In this darkness, nearly 75% of all species vanished, from enormous dinosaurs to tiny plankton. But in this same darkness, life learned to adapt. Paleontologists began to notice something curious in the fossil record. At the boundary where dinosaurs disappear, the remains of small mammals and birds increase. It was as if nature had switched the cast of a grand play. The giants had fallen, and the understudies stepped onto the stage. Fossils like Didelphodon, a small carnivorous mammal, showed powerful jaws capable of cracking eggs and scavenging anything edible. Multituberculates, the rodent-like pioneers of the mammalian world, survived by gnawing roots and seeds underground. Avian dinosaurs, the ancestors of modern birds, developed beaks, lightweight bones, and the ability to migrate long distances in search of food. Crocodiles, meanwhile, simply waited. Their slow metabolism and amphibious nature allowed them to survive long periods without food. Amphibians like frogs and salamanders hibernated beneath frozen mud, enduring the toxic cold. In the oceans, sharks and rays, ancient survivors from eras even older than the dinosaurs, continued to thrive in deep waters, where sunlight was never their ally anyway. But perhaps the most haunting discovery came not from fossils, but from patterns of life itself. After every extinction, a few life forms always endure. They are never the most beautiful, nor the most powerful. They are the adaptable, the quiet ones that change shape, behavior, and diet to fit the new world. This realization transformed evolutionary science. It wasn't the fiercest who survived. It was the flexible. Darwin's words, written millions of years later, would echo this truth. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Across continents, scientists piece together this mosaic of survival. In China, delicate fossils of early birds like Confucius ornis told of creatures that bridged the gap between dinosaur and sparrow. In North America, skull fragments of small mammals hinted at the early rise of placentals, the lineage that would one day lead to primates. And deep in Antarctica's sediments, evidence suggested that even in the frozen dark, marine life endured. Small fish, resilient plankton, and ancient sharks carried the torch of existence through the abyss. The Cretaceous Paleogene extinction was not just an ending. It was an experiment in endurance. Every living thing on Earth today, from humans to hummingbirds, is a descendant of those that adapted to that chaos. Every breath we take is a whisper from those who refuse to vanish. And yet, as scientists continue to study those survivors, a deeper mystery unfolds. Why did some lineages thrive while others, seemingly identical, perished? Why did one group of dinosaurs evolve into birds, while the rest disappeared into dust? Why did mammals, once insignificant night scavengers, rise to dominate the world? Perhaps the answer lies not in strength, but in opportunity. When the world burned, it was cleared for something new, a reset button pressed by nature itself. And in that silence after destruction, evolution began again, this time with a different set of players. When the dust began to settle, the earth was unrecognizable. The air was thick with ash, the oceans acidic, and the forests, once echoing with the thunder of dinosaurs, stood as blackened skeletons against a pale horizon. And yet, beneath this haunting silence, life stirred again. The first survivors to emerge from the ashes were the small ones, the quiet engineers of a new world. Let us walk among them, one by one, as they rebuild what the fire had erased. Scene 1. The burrowers, mammals rising from the underground, beneath the charred soil of ancient plains, tiny mammals huddled in darkness. They were nocturnal, fur-covered creatures no larger than a modern rat, eyes adapted to the faintest light, hearts beating fast under layers of dust. While the giants had ruled the open lands, these mammals had lived in fear, forced to hide beneath roots and rocks. But now, the giants were gone. One fossil, discovered in North Dakota, paints a picture of such a survivor, Didelphodon vorax, a sharp-toothed scavenger that looked like a hybrid between an opossum and a badger. It fed on anything it could find: lizard carcasses, eggs, seeds, even the bones of smaller prey. For millions of years, mammals like Didelphodon lived in shadows. But in this new, empty world, they emerged into the light for the first time. No longer prey, now pioneers. With their warm blood, they could endure cold nights. With their curiosity, they explored new niches. And with time, these creatures diversified, evolving into the first placental mammals, the ancestors of dogs, whales, elephants, and humans. The extinction had not ended life, it had merely cleared the stage. And the mammals, while oisifaux, once invisible, began their slow, unstoppable rise. Scene 2. The crocodiles, lords of stillness. In the stagnant rivers of post-impact Earth, the water barely moved. The sun was dim, the surface scattered with ash. But beneath, in the cold, murky depths, a pair of yellow eyes waited motionless. The crocodiles had seen worse. They were already ancient by the time of the asteroid, relics from the age of the first dinosaurs. Their secret was patience. Crocodiles could slow their heartbeat to just a few beats per minute. They could survive months without eating. When food disappeared, they simply stopped moving, waiting for the world to calm. While warm-blooded creatures starved, crocodiles adapted to the famine with silence. They survived not by fighting, but by enduring. To this day, crocodiles remain almost unchanged, living fossils, reminders of a strategy that conquered time itself. Do not evolve to rule. Evolve to last. Scene 3. The birds. The last dinosaurs. High above the shattered forests, a fragile melody returned, a faint song, trembling against the wind. It was the song of survival. The birds that lived through the extinction were the direct descendants of small, feathered theropods, cousins of the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex. When the asteroid struck, nearly all flying species perished. But a few, small, ground-dwelling birds that fed on seeds survived. Why? Because seeds endure. In the frozen soil lay entire banks of buried life. When the plants died, the seeds remained, perfect capsules of energy for those who could find them. And birds, with their beaks and agility, did. From these survivors came the ancestors of today's sparrows, crows, and eagles. They inherited the sky from the dragons that once dominated it. Each time you hear a bird sing, you're listening to the distant echo of the dinosaurs, a whisper that crossed 66 million years. Scene 4. The ocean dwellers, masters of the deep. While fire consumed the land, the oceans told another story. Beneath the waves, shielded from the burning sky, a quieter battle unfolded. Coral reefs died. Many marine reptiles, like the mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, vanished forever. But life in the depths adapted differently. Sharks, for instance, barely noticed the chaos above. Their ancient design, perfected over 400 million years, allowed them to endure changes that would destroy others. They fed on whatever drifted down from the surface: carcasses, debris, and the remains of once great creatures. Deep-sea species, living in permanent darkness, were immune to the sudden loss of sunlight. Their world had always been cold, always starless. And so, when the world above collapsed, the deep ocean barely flinched. It became a cradle for the next wave of evolution, home to the ancestors of whales, seals, and many modern fish species. Scene 5. The reclaiming of the Earth. Decades passed, then centuries, then millions of years. Slowly, green returned to the gray. Ferns crept over the ashes. Rivers carved new paths through the cooling stone. And on those riversides, footprints appeared, small, delicate, belonging to creatures that had inherited a broken world and were learning to live again. These were the quiet victors of the apocalypse: mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish, rewriting the story of life with every generation. In the fossil record, their bones mark the dawn of a new era, the Cenozoic, the age of mammals. It was not born from triumph, but from survival. And every living being today carries within it that ancient memory, the DNA of those who refused to die. Why did these creatures survive, while so many others perished? It's a question that has haunted paleontologists for decades. The asteroid impact was a global event, impartial, merciless. It did not choose favorites. And yet, somehow, some lineages clung to existence while the rest of life's vast empire crumbled. The answers, as scientists soon discovered, were not simple. Scene 1. Theories of survival, luck, location, and adaptation. In one of the most famous debates in evolutionary science, researchers proposed that survival wasn't about strength, but about circumstance. Some species, like small mammals and burrowing creatures, happened to live in places where the destruction was less direct. They were hidden in burrows, caves, or underwater when the firestorm swept the surface. Others, like birds, had access to food sources that could last through years of darkness: seeds, roots, or detritus. Dr. David Jablonski, a leading paleobiologist at the University of Chicago, once described this as survival by default. Those who simply lived in the right place, eating the right thing, at the right time, won the evolutionary lottery. But luck alone couldn't explain it all. There were deeper patterns at work, patterns written into the very biology of these survivors. Scene 2. The cold-blooded advantage. Consider the crocodiles and turtles. Their physiology is a marvel of patience. Cold-blooded animals can reduce their metabolic rate to a near standstill, while warm-blooded dinosaurs needed constant food to maintain energy. Crocodiles could wait, motionless, for months, feeding on scraps, surviving in water too cold for others. In an age when sunlight vanished and food chains collapsed, this ability became a ticket through extinction. Paleontologist Anthony Fiorillo once said, "The crocodiles didn't outfight the dinosaurs. They simply outlasted them." It's a quiet lesson. Sometimes survival means not doing more, but doing less. Scene 3. The warm-blooded rebels mammals, however, took the opposite approach. Instead of slowing down, they sped up. Warm-blooded, adaptable, and able to regulate their own temperature, mammals could live in cold, dark environments that would have killed reptiles. They scavenged, hunted, hid, and bred quickly. Their small size was another gift. Tiny bodies required less energy, allowing them to survive on limited resources. And because they reproduced fast, they evolved fast, an evolutionary arms race that prepared them for whatever came next. When light returned to the Earth, mammals were already changing, experimenting with new shapes, diets, and habitats. They became the architects of the next great age. Scene 4. The bird mystery, the dinosaurs that made it. But perhaps the strangest survivors of all were the birds. Because birds are dinosaurs, the last living branch of a family that once ruled the skies and the earth. Yet 99% of their relatives vanished. What made them special? Some paleontologists, like Dr. Thomas Holtz, suggest that the key lay in their beaks. Unlike toothed dinosaurs, beaked birds could eat seeds, which survived underground during the long global winter. They also had the ability to fly long distances, migrate, and escape local devastation. In short, they were mobile, adaptable, and omnivorous, the ultimate generalists. Wherever there was a chance of food, birds could find it. Their descendants, the modern birds we see today, carry that same spirit. When we look at a crow scavenging on a city street or a sparrow nesting in the cold, we are witnessing the same resilience that carried their ancestors through the apocalypse. Scene 5. Chance vs. Destiny. The evolutionary paradox. But not everyone agrees that biology alone explains it. Some scientists argue that chance played the biggest role, a cruel, cosmic roll of the dice. If the asteroid had struck a few minutes earlier or later, it might have hit the ocean instead of land. The devastation would still have been immense, but perhaps not enough to erase the dinosaurs. Others, like Dr. Charles Marshall of UC Berkeley, suggest a more subtle explanation. The dinosaurs weren't doomed by the asteroid alone. They were already vulnerable. Climate changes, volcanic eruptions, and shifting ecosystems had weakened them. The impact was simply the final blow. It's a sobering thought. Maybe extinction isn't a sudden event, but a long whisper, one that begins centuries before the final silence. Scene 6. The rebuilding of the world. After the chaos came rebirth. Volcanoes seeded new land. Rain washed the dust from the sky. Forests slowly returned, green tendrils breaking through gray earth. And in those forests, the survivors thrived. With the dinosaurs gone, new ecological spaces, niches, opened up like empty rooms in a vast house. Mammals filled them. Some grew larger. Some learned to climb. Others returned to the sea. In only 10 million years, a blink in geological time, the planet once again teemed with life. Predators hunted. Herbivores grazed. Birds filled the skies. The world had been remade, not by strength, but by resilience. Every living creature today, including us, is a descendant of those who endured the night. Our own story begins not in triumph, but in survival. Scene 7. The hidden cost of survival. But survival has its price. The animals that lived through the extinction were changed forever. They evolved in a world of scarcity and chaos, a world that taught them to adapt, to fear, to compete. That legacy lingers in us too. Our instincts for hunger, fear, and self-preservation, they are echoes of that age of fire. When our ancestors faced hunger, they remembered the mammals that once survived on roots. When we seek safety, it's the ancient reflex of hiding from predators that no longer exist. The creatures that survived the dinosaurs did more than outlive them. They became the foundation of all modern behavior, all life, all memory. We carry the story of that survival in every heartbeat. The story of the dinosaur extinction isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror. Because what happened 66 million years ago is not only written in the rocks, it's written in us. Every heartbeat, every breath, every instinct for safety or hunger or fear comes from those creatures that lived through the end of the world. When the asteroid struck, life had two choices: adapt or vanish. And that choice, repeated through billions of years, became the law of survival itself. Scene 1. The lesson of fragility. The dinosaurs once seemed invincible. They were huge, powerful, untouchable. And yet, they were gone in a geological blink. Their extinction reminds us of something we often forget. No matter how dominant a species becomes, the Earth does not guarantee permanence. Our cities, our machines, our empires, too. To the planet, they are as fleeting as the roar of a tyrannosaurus. One impact, one shift, one global crisis, and the balance resets. But within that fragility lies a deeper truth. Life endures. Even when fire turned the skies black, something small, something humble, always found a way to continue. That spark, the will to adapt, is the essence of survival. It's not brute strength that keeps a species alive. It's the capacity to bend without breaking, to wait, to change, to begin again. Scene 2. Humanity's own asteroid. In many ways, we face our own extinction pressures today. Not from asteroids, but from ourselves. Climate change, habitat destruction, the loss of biodiversity. They echo the same forces that reshaped the Earth at the end of the Cretaceous. We are both the asteroid and the survivors. Our actions bring destruction, but we also hold the power to adapt, to protect, to rebuild. The question is, which legacy will we choose? Scientists studying the Cretaceous extinction warn that we are living through what some call the sixth mass extinction. Species are disappearing faster than they can evolve. And yet, the story of the past offers hope. Because even when the Earth was covered in ash, life never gave up. It evolved, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively, but always forward. We, too, are part of that same current of resilience. We are not separate from the survivors of the past. We are their continuation. Scene 3. Evolution's quiet genius. Think of the mammals that hid underground, surviving by instinct alone. Think of the crocodiles that stayed perfectly still while the world burned above them. Think of the birds, small and fragile, that carried the memory of flight through a darkened sky. They did not plan their survival. They simply were, responding to the world as it changed. And perhaps that's the lesson for us. We cannot always control what comes. But we can adapt, not through panic or dominance, but through awareness, flexibility, and connection. The creatures that survived didn't fight the planet. They flowed with it. They adjusted to its rhythm. They trusted time. In that sense, they were wiser than we are. Scene 4. The psychology of survival. Inside every human being lives a small echo of those ancient survivors. Our fear of the dark, our craving for warmth, our urge to protect, to flee, to rebuild, these are not modern emotions. They are prehistoric instructions. When we feel anxiety before a storm, when we hoard food in hard times, when we look up at the sky and wonder what's coming, we are replaying instincts written millions of years ago, in a time when survival was a daily miracle. We are not separate from prehistory. We are prehistory. Every cell in our body is a museum of victories, victories over cold, over hunger, over extinction itself. So when you doubt humanity's future, remember this. We come from creatures that survived the end of the world. Endurance is not what we do, it's what we are. Scene 5. The continuation of life's symphony. When the world resets, life doesn't disappear, it transforms. And every great collapse in history has made room for something new. The fall of the dinosaurs gave rise to mammals. The chaos of the ice ages forged intelligence and cooperation in early humans. Every disaster carved the path that led to consciousness, to us. So, perhaps the extinction wasn't just an ending. Perhaps it was a necessary clearing, a rebirth. And if that is true, then every challenge we face today is not the end of our story, but the next test of our adaptability. Every climate crisis, every environmental collapse, is asking the same question that echoed through the ashes of the Cretaceous. Can we change fast enough to survive? Scene 6. The moral of the survivors. What the fossil record shows us, and what life itself proves, is that survival doesn't belong to the strongest, or the cleverest, or the largest. It belongs to the most responsive, the ones who can learn, shift, and rebuild when the world changes. The ones who can see death not as defeat, but as transformation. When we look at a crocodile's eyes, or hear a bird's song, or see a mammal nursing its young, we are seeing 66 million years of quiet defiance. They survived the impossible, and they did it not with force, but with endurance. That is their gift to us, a reminder that life, no matter how battered, always finds a way back. When the earth was still trembling from the impact, when ash fell like black snow and sunlight vanished from the sky, the world must have seemed utterly lost. Yet somewhere in the darkness, a heartbeat continued. A tiny mammal stirred underground. A bird rustled its feathers. A crocodile floated silently through the smoke-filled waters. Life, frail, trembling, but relentless, refused to die. And from those quiet moments, everything we know today began again. Scene 1. The thread that never broke. Every living thing on this planet is bound by that same invisible thread, the will to endure. The flowers that bloom after wildfires. The sea turtles that return to the same beach year after year. Even us, building cities out of stone and glass. We are all carrying the same ancient instruction written into our DNA. Survive, adapt, continue. It took the death of an entire world for ours to be born. The extinction of the dinosaurs was not a tragedy alone. It was also the seed of creation. Without that moment of chaos, mammals might have stayed small and hidden forever. There would be no elephants, no whales, no humans to tell this story. Sometimes, destruction is the beginning of imagination. Scene 2. The living legacy. When you see a bird glide across the morning sky, remember, you are looking at the last living dinosaurs. When you watch a crocodile drift through a river, you are seeing a creature that has outlived empires, continents, and cataclysms. When you hold a cat, a dog, or a child, remember that they exist because small, frightened mammals once crawled out of the ashes and dared to begin again. We are not apart from that history. We are that history. Every breath we take continues a story that began in the silence after the end. Scene 3. The warning. Beneath the wonder. But every story of survival carries a warning. The same forces that reshaped the earth then, climate shifts, poisoned skies, collapsing food webs, are stirring again, this time by our own hand. If an asteroid changed the planet in a day, what might we do in a century? Will we, too, be swept away by our own creation? Or will we, like the small mammals and the winged dinosaurs, find a way to adapt, to learn, to transform? Extinction is not only a memory, it's a possibility. The same fragility that ended the dinosaurs hums quietly beneath our feet, and the same resilience that saved them still beats within our hearts. Scene 4. The eternal question. So, perhaps the real mystery is not why the dinosaurs died, but how life continues at all. How does a planet recover from annihilation? How does a spark of consciousness rise again after every fall? The answer, whispered by every fossil, every raindrop, every living thing, is this: life never gives up. From cosmic fire to frozen ice, from silence to song, the Earth always finds a way back to balance. And maybe that's the greatest secret our prehistoric ancestors left us: to endure not with dominance, but with humility, not with fear, but with wonder. Final narration, closing words. The creatures that survived the dinosaur extinction were not heroes of power. They were masters of patience. They didn't conquer the Earth. They waited for it to heal. And when it did, they built a new world, one that eventually gave rise to us. So, as we stand at the edge of our own uncertain future, the question remains: will we be the next extinction or the next great beginning? The answer, as it always has been, lies in our ability to adapt. This is the story of the creatures that survived the dinosaur extinction, a story not just of death, but of endurance. Because in the grand design of life, survival is the truest form of victory. If you've enjoyed this journey through prehistory, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And join us next time as we uncover another hidden chapter in the story of Earth. Because somewhere, beneath the dust of time, another mystery still waits to be unearthed.